That's actually.
Okay. The rules, just to let you know, we're going to get started at 12:30, whether anybody shows up or not, but the first question is going to be really relevant because we're going to ask the question of black vote, brown vote, important or impotent. Okay? We're going to start out there. But the rules. Everybody's going to be allowed 2 to 3 minutes to respond. In certain cases, you will have a timekeeper. The timekeeper is Selena Winchester. Selena, raise your hand. And then, Selena, can you demonstrate the way we will work? Once you speak for 1 minute, you got 1 minute left, Selena will basically hold this up and say 1 minute left. All right? Selena will also give you a response and let you know you got 30 seconds. And we'll also let you know if time's up. And if you go too far, we're going to pull out the famous Sandman from the Apollo Theater. That's what we're going to do. Okay? So just to let you know, all right? Now, it's important for us to keep time. All the questions. I made sure, and I think it's important for us to basically speak from the heart and be honest. We've got some representatives here. We've got a variety of different folks that will be walking in because sometimes we work on the CP time. Y'all understand what I'm talking about. All right? And so we just want to be honest and speak from the heart to allow people to really understand. This will also be videotaped so people can really see some of your answers. Okay? And it will be edited. So it's not going to be live streamed, but it will be videotaped, and you'll be able to see exactly what you said. Okay? Thank you all for showing up. First of all, thanks Susan. Thanks for team. Tinsley got somebody here, and all the people that are out there. Thank you all for showing up. But the first question I'm going to ask is a very serious question. It is the title and the question that was the theme of this event. And I want you to answer from the perspective from your particular community. So the first question is the black and brown vote important or is it impotent? And we're going to start with the actual senior pastor here, Dr. Greg Edwards.
All right, so thank you, Michael. So, I mean, obviously, statistically, we see that the black vote and the brown vote matters. That when black and brown populations are engaged, that they make a tremendous difference in who gets elected. So, and this, let me just say this, that I think there's a myth that the black and brown vote is impotent. I think that that's a myth. It's a bit of a conundrum because whenever black and brown folks show up, statistically, they are a game changer in who occupies a seat. Unfortunately, I think the Democratic Party in particular overlooks the black and brown vote, doesn't value the black and brown vote, and I think that begins to lead to folks thinking that black folks just sit home and don't vote. I mean, the reality is, black folks have a very tenuous history with the federal government. And I don't think it's so much that there is a level of apathy as much as there is voter alienation on the part of both sides of the aisle, Republicans and Democrats. So I would say that the black and brown vote certainly matters and certainly is a game changer. And we see that in Alabama with Doug Jones. We see that throughout the nation. We see that in our presidential elections and our races. But we certainly don't do a good job at targeting the black and brown vote or valuing it as a party. Either party does it. So.
Good. Next, Phoebe Harris. Phoebe, can you tell us about yourself? You were on school board. Is that correct?
Yes, I'm Allentown School Board Director and also Allentown City Dems President. For myself, the black and brown vote was extremely important. I'm a housewife. I don't work outside my home, and I ran for school board, and 3 black women were elected. Black and brown people came out to elect us, so it's extremely important. It showed us we had a new black superintendent. That galvanized our black and brown voters here in Allentown to come out because they felt like, okay, we got a stake in this now. And they came out and elected Cheryl, myself, and Lisa Conover. So, personally to me, it is extremely important.
Next we have Cheryl Johnson-Watts, School Board.
Good afternoon, and thank
for the opportunity to speak. I was scheduled to be in Virginia and change of plans. So I am grateful to talk about this subject, which is timely. Why is it so timely? Because not enough people recognize the value of the black and brown vote. And there are so many people that time and time again, whether it's a Clinton election or an Obama election or any other type of election, will talk about, oh, we're with the black community. But then quite often, people within those very same communities feel as though they were left by the wayside for different issues that may cross all of the different communities, but nothing targeting their community. So what tends to happen is you have this sense of elevation of causes and issues, and then suddenly bewilderment as to what just happened. Who was that person? Where are the issues that were addressed earlier? Where are they now being addressed? So it is important to recognize that that can lead to apathy. I don't believe that black voters are apathetic. I don't believe brown voters are apathetic. I think it's a matter of educating to the value of their vote and then getting people to believe that they need to vote again, because so often they have voted and not seen the results they expected.
Next we have Cynthia Mota, City Councilwoman, Hamilton.
Buenas tardes, good afternoon. I'm really happy to be here and thank you for inviting me. Of course, brown and black vote matters. I mean, when they knock in our doors and we believe in the mission and in the vision, we'll go out and we'll vote. But the reality is that I've been doing surveys throughout the community recently, and the community, they feel, hopeless to a certain extent. They feel that politicians, when they are needed, that's when they come and knock on the doors and find out, hey, what is it that you need? So they feel used, and it's time that we stop doing this. It is important that we represent them and that we present them, with a lot of how would you call this? Hope opportunities, that we value their vote. There's a lot of United States citizens. There's a lot of people that would like to be engaged, but the reality is they feel that they're being used, and they're sick of that. So we have to be mindful of that. And we're here to stay, and there's more of us, and that's the reality. 2020, watch it. We're gonna be the majority, and that's the reality. We're here to stay. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Mr. Nagi Latifa. Nagi is the former president of the Lehigh Valley Muslim Association.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to repeat many of the same things that you said, but I agree with Dr. Edwards that black and brown voice is a game changer. The issue that we're talking about, the reason why we're not engaged, we're not there all the time, because we oversold the expectations of these people. And let's look at the Obama administration. We had an African-American president. We thought the world was going to change, and a lot of people did not really see changes in their basic life. We didn't see much changes here in Allentown. And when you go to the same people that probably have difficulty doing their jobs and say, I want you to be involved, I want you to vote, I want you to go out. And when they do, they don't see anything basic. So we want to start from the start, but we really should start at the basement. And we need people. Look at Allentown here. Why are black and brown votes are represented in city council and in the administration and in all of the Lehigh Valley offices? Not that there are other great guys, but why aren't they involved? People don't see it day in and day out, and then absolutely, politicians will abuse and use everyone. It's up to us to hold them accountable. And in my community, I go a lot and I try to get the Muslim engaged and raise money for candidates, and they tell me, Brother Nagi, these politicians, they come talk to us, and then once they win and they have an opportunity, they'll focus their eye on what policies and things like that, that don't, and when you go reach them, you can't even talk to them. They want to talk to a staff person. It's so, that will always be there because the structure is there. The only thing that you could do is be involved ourselves. Like, why aren't we developing young leaders here? And that's the leaders, the pastors, the whoever. This is our responsibility. I know we complain a lot, but I think our leadership, the black and brown, and also the black and browns don't talk to each other much. Okay? I mean, we're really all over the map. I don't know much about what we do. You don't know much about what we do. We're just singing our own little sphere. But that's, I'm done? Oh, okay. But, you know, I mean, this is absolutely, it's a critical, but a lot of it also in the politicians, but also a lot that we really need to be critical of ourselves. What have we done to get youth and millennials and people engaged and to change the life of people locally? So that, you know, okay, I'm done. I don't want the Sandman.
You got 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds. You got 30 seconds.
Yeah, so, I mean, it's a big discussion, extremely important. I think in this cycle, in this election, the congressional race, the black and brown votes will put the winner over the top if they get engaged and go out and vote.
Next, we have Pastor Hailey, Benjamin Hailey, from Union Baptist, Senior Pastor.
I'm just thankful to be here today. The reality, and it's been echoed by everybody here, black and brown votes will change, swing, control elections across the country. Florida, Georgia. I think it's obvious that black and brown votes carry those primaries. The problem, and even from this perspective of saying, is the black and brown vote impotent, gives indication that there is a disconnect between electoral process and policy making. The disinterest that is perceived in black and brown voting is a lack of interest of black and brown folks when politicians are elected. The policies that are created, the policies that are not fought against, that disempower, disenfranchise black and brown people, we see those things once you get to Washington, or once you get to downtown Allentown, or once you get to Harrisburg. We see what you're not fighting against. We see what you're not championing for our causes. And so the question that people ask me is, Pastor, when we're engaging, because you said it, we're trying to engage people in the electoral process, we're trying to engage people in voter registration. You put a voter registration card in front of somebody and they say, why? Yes. And it's kind of hard to answer that question. When you look at the policy making that's coming from our national level, our state level, our local level, it's hard to convince somebody to vote for somebody that's not going to be representing them when they get elected. So what parties have to do on either side of the aisle is make sure that they understand who they are representing. I think we've missed that whole process, and electoral processes have become individualized or corporatized, rather than what our standard is in this nation that says it's politics by the people for the people. So again, laying that foundation, what do? And what we have to do is make sure that the persons that we put in office understand what they're going in office for, who they're going in office to represent, and hold them accountable in various ways. Visiting, emailing, blowing up their phones, doing what we have to do. Again, it becomes a part of now our responsibility as individuals to make sure that pressure is put on representatives to represent us. So it's a two-way street, it's a touchy area. But I think things like this are bringing some indication that there is an interest from the general public to really change the way politics are working in America. And I'll end this last thing. Things have changed politically, and they'll never be the same. So we've got to shift with the shift that's already happened.
Okay, next we do have, thank you so much, and next we do have Mr. DeGrace, community activist.
Thanks for the opportunity to join this distinguished panel here, Mike, and appreciate the opportunity to share some of my experiences in community activism in the Lehigh Valley. virtually everyone said the same thing so far, and everything is dead on, and I echo everything they said. Now, on a numerical level, if you look at it and just look at the statistics, Allentown has burgeoned in Latino population from 1980, from 4.5% to 52% today. Yet the performance of the Latino community has been sporadic at best. In '96, there was a spike, and we really pushed Clinton in there in 2008 and 2012 for Obama. So the answer to the question is obvious. If you engage the black and brown vote, you really can change different votes. You mentioned a couple states. You mentioned Florida, Georgia, and we also had Doug Jones in Alabama. And now you have a situation in Texas with Beto O'Rourke and Ted Cruz. And guess what the key to victory there is? Energizing the Latino community to vote for Beto O'Rourke. And you can give it to somebody like Ted Cruz. So the answer is very obvious. It's very important. What we have is locally and nationally a dysfunctional relationship. And the problem we have is part of the lethargy within the Latino community, the brown and black vote. And the other part is what Pastor alluded to earlier. He just said, hey, no matter who the Democratic presidential candidate was, they got between 85 and 95% of the vote. Which way is the Democratic vote going to go? Within the Latino community, 65 to 85% goes to Democrats. So you are going to either take it for granted or you're going to engage it. The numbers of people who don't vote are phenomenal and they're ridiculous. But the off-peak elections is what kills us. That's how the Tea Party came into power, and the black and brown vote was impotent, forgive me, at that point, and look where we're at now. So I believe it was Woody Guthrie who said, whether you vote or don't vote, you will get the government you deserve. If you're suffering now, it's because you didn't vote. If you vote and you get the people in there, then you get the government you deserve. Representation at the local level has improved. You heard it from Cynthia, you heard it from Phoebe, you heard it from Cheryl. So things are changing, the Lehigh Valley is changing, it is becoming blacker and browner, and all the institutions with any power do not look like the people they serve. It is not a representative republic, it is not a democratic representation of the people they serve. We need people in positions of power to distribute the resources and opportunities within the Lehigh Valley. That's what has to happen. The numbers alone are not going to do it. And all the time what I see is there's one key that gets that done, getting out and voting. You talk to people in the Latino communities and you talk to people in the black communities and you get the response you heard from the panel here. Why? Why does it matter and why should I do it now? I've never gotten what I wanted when I did vote. So we have to bridge that gap, energize the black and brown vote and show that it matters.
Okay, thank you. Came close to the sandman on that one. But anyway, just to have and to think about what the panel's talking about, the reality is that we need to get involved globally, right? But one of the questions that I typically have to everybody is this, right? Which matters most? Presidential election or the local election? What impacts you more? We can start with Gregory.
That's a rhetorical question. You know, I mean, we spend billions of dollars in our country focusing in on who's president. And we don't teach basic civics any longer. So when you're knocking on doors for a candidate, most people, regardless of their race, gender, or zip code, don't know the difference between a senator or a U.S. House member. Don't know that there's 3 branches of government. And I think that oftentimes, and that's even by, I think some of that might be actually by design. Because if you have an uninformed electorate, it doesn't make a difference who's sitting in the White House or who's sitting in the mayoral office, as long as the very few can rule the many. And so when folk are really woke and engaged, they can self-actualize and move beyond what I call, like hope and trust. We voted for Obama because we hoped and trusted him that he would do some things that arguably he didn't do. We have to move beyond hope and trust and have a politics of accountability. In other words, we have to challenge this notion that public policy is somehow not racially biased. We are in a nation where there is a great deal of imbalance of economics, due to racialized policies that historically have disenfranchised black and brown communities. And the fear of being able to say that because you're going to offend another group is what actually, I believe, is holding the soul of our nation hostage. Everybody, right? So it is holding all of us kind of hostage. And, you know, I mean, black and brown folks are still suffering from the 2008 recession. The only community that wasn't able to galvanize somehow and ride the, if you will, the rising tide, that philosophy, which doesn't really happen in the brown community because of the disconnect that Pastor Hailey talked about. So all of it matters. Tim O'Neill said all politics are local, all of it matters. The school board matters. City council matters. State rep seats matter. State senate seats. It's not more, they all matter to our lives. But, you know, the farther you get someone away from that district, the easier it is for that person to be unaccountable. So we've got to help our communities draw the dots and the lines and how politics really affect and impact them.
Okay, good. Now this is free for all on this one, and whoever wants to answer that particular question, what is best for you, federal or state? Now one question I have is locally. The challenge that a lot of people have is that the organization or the governmental organization is based on the mayor. And believe it or not, the mayor appoints people to something called boards and authorities. How many people know how many boards and authorities we actually have in Allentown and what they do? So what matters to you guys? Are you on, if you're interested in economics, are you in the Allentown Commercial and Industrial Development Board? Policing, they've got a police board. They've got animal control. They've got building code boards. They've got disruptive conduct boards. They've got so many boards, and the important thing, I think, is that we need to participate in the election cycle, but at the same time, get on certain boards. Yes, Cynthia, Moulton would like to speak.
Cheryl.
I'm so Cheryl.
Okay. You speak of many boards, but not the process to get on those boards.
Oh, no, you speak on that. No, I'm asking
Okay,
that
so
question.
just so you know, you can be invited to be on a board, and you have, or be appointed to be on a board. You are not elected to be on a board. You can be invited, and your invitation can be rescinded to be on a board. I'm not going to get specific.
And who controls the board?
And who controls the board. So these are very important keys to recognize. Some of the choices in the selection process for these types of roles are also based on other affiliations that people may have that will lead to them being on that particular commission. So it's not like going to jury duty. Oh, you're a registered voter? We're going to have you come out and serve on a jury. Which, first and foremost, I must say, when we talk about mass incarceration and all these other issues, any black or brown person that does not go when they're called for jury duty, I'm not sure why, okay? But getting back to how being on these boards or commissions is not the same as being put on a jury, you have to be in different circles, you have to be in different scenarios. Some circles you may not want to be in, some circles you may be okay with. So we can't break down this concept of civic action simply to whether or not the individual decides. There are some things that that individual will have to determine whether they will or will not participate in order to make those things happen. So there's a more complex discussion there. But voting and voting people into positions of power that then oversee the functioning of those boards and commissions is a conversation that can easily be had.
And the mayor is the person that actually appoints. I got a list of all the boards here. The mayor appoints the board. So that person who is the mayor determines locally how these boards impact you. A lot of people miss the boards, don't understand the boards. They participate in the political process, and it's good to have activity, but getting on the board, you can influence so many different things. The NISD is a board, the zoning board is a board. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. DeGrace.
Mike, I've served on every one of those boards that you mentioned, and one of the things that I can say is people get tired of talking an issue to death and seeing no result at the end. And it's also, it's a common tool to use use for people who are engaged to bring them in and cut the legs out from underneath them and let them talk for 2 years about an issue and get nothing done at the end. That's what has happened, and it's a futile tool, but it does this in power. You said it, the mayor, everything's under the auspices of the mayor. He decides. When have we had a mayor that looks like the people of the city of Allentown? We had a candidate back in 1997, Marty Blasquez ran for mayor. We haven't had a candidate of color for mayor since, have we?
Well, David Jones.
For mayor, there we go. Okay, so you can name them, and we just, when a person of power gets in position to distribute the decision-making, then the city's going to look like what it represents. All the boards, the community-based organizations, all the funding sources, for social, political, financial, religious, it doesn't look like the people of Allentown. But the numbers aren't there until we get people to vote, and then you'll have people who look like, in power, who look like the people they serve. So the boards matter, but they got to get something done. But they won't get on the board until we get people who look like the people they serve into positions of power.
Good. David Jones served on the Civil Service Board. As a result of the Civil Service Board, he was able to adjust the requirements for police officers to be hired. That's real policy. And I think one of the things we need to focus on locally is what affects us. And so boards do that. Getting on that board is critical. Okay, good. Next, Cynthia Mota. I think, Cynthia, you had something to say. You know about
Yes, I'm a woman of faith. I really believe that things are changing, and things are changing for the better. What I can tell you is that there's a system in process to get on those boards. There was a form that I spoke with the mayor about it, because a few years ago, we did ban the box. But the reality is that in those forms, it talked about if you have a criminal, background. So I fought for that, so that they can get rid of that, and they did. So we have a new form. I really believe that we need to learn the process, like you were saying, Cheryl. We need to learn the process. But the reality is, if you don't fill out those forms, you will not be able to get into those boards. If you do the application and they don't call you, will hold us accountable. I always tell the community, make sure that you send your mom, that you send your sister, that you send someone, even your neighbor, to a city council meeting, which is the first and the third Wednesday of every month. If you're not educated of what's going on in your city, then we should not be complaining. If you fill those forms and they don't call you, guess what? Go to city council at 7 p.m., the first and third Wednesday of every month, and talk about it. Hey, mayor, I did apply, 2 weeks, 3 weeks ago, and I haven't heard anything. Hey, city council, what can you guys do? I really would like to serve and hold us accountable. We always say that we're looking for volunteers to get into those boards, hold us accountable. I want to see more representation, more people that look like us. And I don't see many of us in those boards, sad to say. Thank you.
Okay.
I have an experience of this, and I don't know how things are in Allentown, but I live in Upper Makanji. And a few years ago, we had a party in the Lowland Park, and then somebody, because women were wearing whatever, and took some pictures and said, okay, we're not going to rent you this park anymore, Lowland Park. So I went to Upper Makanji Township, discussed what's going on. Anyhow, then I saw one of the people there that night. They had a meeting for the sports board. And I said, oh, we work together, in the same company at Intel, or we were at LSI at the time. And he said, oh, by the way, you should get involved with these boards. I am going to be resigning, I'm going to be leaving. He either had a baby or something. I think he will make a great member there. I live next to Ron Lane. I play all kinds of sport. I wanted to bring the Muslim community and the brown community. If you go to Upper Makanji, and I don't have any exact number, but if you go to any store in Upper Makanji, you'll see a lot of black and brown dogs.